Dear viewers, thank you for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television, live from my headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, another leader of non-state armed groups in the northwest and southwest regions, Crisis, goes down to the bullet of elements of the national armed forces. He was killed in Bongen, the southwest region of the country, alongside two of his collaborators. We'll get details with the senior divisional officer of the Kmer division in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinoxe Television. We shall also take you to the National Assembly and, of course, the Senate of the Republic of Cameroon in Yaoundé. In the two houses, the lower and the upper houses of parliament, the presidents have maintained their grip on power. Kavaye Jibril at the National Assembly and Marcel Nyakinchifenji in the upper house of parliament. Once more, thank you for joining us. We begin this newscast in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, where another leader of non-state armed groups in the crisis, pulling on for more than 4 years today in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, has been gunned down by elements of the national armed forces. The general called Spirito, the separatist general called General Spirito, was gunned down by elements of the national armed forces in Bonge. This, of course, in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, and his body, alongside two of his collaborators who were also killed, presented to the public in the Kumba. We have greater details on this in this extract of the senior divisional officer of the Kmer division, Tundong Chamberlain.
So, to testify that Spirito is no more. He has been neutralized by our defense forces. And you know, all of us know who was General Spirito. A very big criminal operating in Baifue, by Boabakundu, by Panya, all those areas. Even Bole, time to time, was the one coordinating those activities there. Many people have been killed by these criminals and these boys. He went to Equinoxe site, where he has planned many attacks in Bobongo, Lekora, and some other places. And there, you know it very well. We lost some of our enemies. But today, due to the bravery of our forces of law and order, he has been neutralized. Let me continue to highlight it here that the amber fighters, they are not having other wirewood. Only wirewood is to surrender and to join it. Let us say, I gave firm instruction to welcome them. It is what we are doing. Today, General Godi is alive. General Nambere is alive. But all those who are refusing to follow that voice, the voice of the head of state, they can be sure that they have nowhere which they are going to neutralize. That is why, like the father of the division, let me continue to advise them that in the meantime for them to join the good side, which is the one of following the appeal sent to them by the Excellency.
The Anglophone crisis is the problem of urban disorder and construction of houses at unauthorized places in the town of Boya, and the traditional rule of great support has warned those who are violating the laws as far as construction of houses is concerned to stop, or the houses will simply be demolished. The Rijato report.
With the population of plus 22,000, Great Support Village in Boya subdivision has its own challenges.
No public stand-up. We need a borehole. Electricity is not extended to most parts of the quarter. The water main pipes are not in the quarter, which makes those with water to have their meters out of the quarter. and therefore suffer a lot of loss from leakages.
Chief Etina Monono, the traditional ruler of the Great Support people, is visiting one of his neighborhoods, and this one is called Quarter 8. The traditional ruler noted with satisfaction that his village is experiencing some continuous growth, especially in the domain of infrastructure, but was disappointed that this growth at the same time is creating a bigger problem.
Lack of inter-street roads and culverts over the deep water gutters, which means that this water can be a death trap to our young children. Encroachment of some inhabitants on the roads, blocking of some roads by some people.
Chief Etina Monono and his delegation, for instance, were supposed to drive round, but he is forced to do so on foot. The motorable street like this one.
In that election at the National Assembly today in the nation's political capital, Yaoundé, should be noted that Kavaye is a member of the Mada ethnic group who was born in 1940. He studied at the Regional Center for Physical Education from 1960 to 1963 and subsequently worked as a teacher in Marwa. He was later appointed as interdepartmental inspector of the interdivisional inspector of the Far North in 1965, and he entered the Legislative Assembly of East Cameroon in 1970. He also became traditional ruler of the Mada community in the 1971 following the creation of the unitary state. Kavaye was elected to the National Assembly of Cameroon, and in 1973, after 10 years in the National Assembly, Kavaye was elected as second vice president, and in 1983, that was in 1983, and in 1985, when President Paul Biya transformed the CNU, the then ruling political party in Cameroon, into the CPDM, the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, he was retained as a member of the CPDM Central Committee. He was elected as president of the National Assembly in 1997, and since then till now, he remains the president of the National Assembly of Cameroon. The same thing at the Senate. The president of the upper house of parliament of the Republic of Cameroon, Marcel Nyat-Njifenji, maintains his grip on power, and of course he was re-elected today as president of the National Assembly with an overwhelming majority. Marcel Nyat-Njifenji was re-elected with 85 votes out of 93. Marcel Nyat-Njifenji is of course a Cameroonian politician from the west region of the Republic of Cameroon, who has been a president of the national or the upper house of Parliament of the Republic of Cameroon since he was created. That was in 2013. And we are receiving a young politician, and his name is Oscar Ismail. He is the regional coordinator of the Socialist Youth. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Babila, and thank you for all our viewers. It's my very first emission here to your. This is my very first panel with you, and I hope I'll be able to give all what the viewers are waiting for me.
Right, you're a member of the National Executive Commission that is commission on the action politic, is that?
Political action, yeah.
Political action, presided at by Honorable Jean-Michel Nincho, Regional President of the Social Democratic Front. Thank you for joining us once more. Now, the two houses of Parliament are led by persons who have been there for decades, for the case of the House Speaker Kavaye Jibril and the Senate Marcel Nyat-Njifenji, who has been there since the upper house of Parliament was established. What's your take on this continuous effort to maintain the hands on power?
I want to say something. You know, as a young politician, this these are the type of things that irritate you, because we heard Mr. Porbia telling about the political transition. So he was preparing. He told us youth that we should prepare to succeed them at the highest decision making position in the country. But now we can see we have young parliamentarian, youth in the parliament that can be appointed at those positions. But today you have Mr. Nyat Defendi, who is 87-year-old, Mr. Kabayege, who is 81-year-old. We just have one question to answer. How can we do to change this country so that these oldest people that can today, they should be in their house with their grandchildren, telling them stories about our country, because I thought they have given all what they have for this country. Mr. Nyat Defendi have been appointed to the parliament as a president since 1992 till today. It's 29 years today that is appointed at the same position. It means that we in Cameroon we don't have another person that can play that role at the parliament. We don't have a young parliamentarian that can.
But others think that the issue should be on, or the focus should be on performance. Are they doing the job well? Are they doing what they expected to do?
It's like I can understand. I can that for that question is I can hear that question like an insult for us, because we say when you say that it's about experience, and no, it means that we young politicians, we don't have experience. We don't have so they cannot, since they are in the parliament, they have not formed people, young parliamentarians that can be appointed at that same position. No, it's not. That's not true. The problem is that Mr. Biya want that all the people with whom he destroyed this country, that they should go together at the same time.
Why are you saying that the president of the republic destroyed the very country he sees he had been struggling to, and he is still working to take to emergence by 2035?
2035. Mr. Biya today is the oldest man of 88 years old. In 2025, he will be more than a century. Do you think that man can be dead till 2030? I'm not sure. So they are just saying things to
tell you that he is working for future generations.
No, if he wanted to do so, he should have prepared someone that can a young politician in Cameroon, even in his party, political party, that can stand on his like a president of Cameroon, a young man who is understanding young people's problem, because we have our own thematic and problematics of today, which are not the same problems that Mr. Biya faces. They face on his time. You see, so today, if Mr. Biya really want to improve with his politics in Cameroon, there
should be change.
No,
at the level of some higher institutions of the republic.
No, Mr. Biya just have to do one thing: to leave that place to young people like us, because we have some. You are talking about this, but I wanted to bring you in another part of this of this debate. Listen, we have in Cameroon 7 top position in the state. We have the President of the Republic, we have the Senate President, we have the President of Parliament, we have the President of Economic Council, yeah. We have the Prime Minister, we have the President of Supreme Court, and the President of Constitutional Council. Amongst these 7 people, we have only one Anglophone, who is the Prime Minister. And none of them has all of them as the average of their age, if you take the average, is about 80 years old of all these people. Why Mr. Biya, even for this time, saying that okay, we have to calm down the political climate in the country, appoint an Anglophone like a president of the parliament this time for this session, or only for this session, because you know the last time we had an Anglophone like president of the parliament in Cameroon was in 1992. It was Honorable Fonka Shang Lawrence. That was the last Anglophone that we had as a president of a National Assembly in Cameroon. Why this time we don't look for a young Cameroonian as a young Anglophone Cameroonian, like the transition? Because Mr. Biya said that he's preparing the transition. Why don't him start by this? Because after the last speech of Mr. Biya, the very first political action that we have in Cameroon was this election. The major political action was the election of the bureau members of the parliament and the senate. It should have started the transition by there to let us understand that the man is serious. So he's just using words for distraction, because let us be, because we are pragmatic. We are not making politics with words. We are pragmatic. Mr. Nya Difenji, who is not even working in some of your editions, you show us how the man is a grabataire.
But he is still able to reason, to think. He's still able to. He's still alive. He is not there.
He was not even there when they opened the Senate session. He was not able to come to the session when they opened the Senate session. But now he's appointed as a president. The man was not in the Cameroon in the country for at least 2 years, because he went for medical care abroad. But now he just come back and they appoint him, an 87-year-old man who has young Cameroonian as member of Senate, because you have SDF senators in the Senate.
Senator Kmer, Senator Kenyan.
They are young enough to take that place, to take that seat as the president of the Senate, because they have their mobility. They can be everywhere at any time.
Right. Donkey Oscar Ismail, Regional Coordinator of Specialist or Socialist Youth for the Littoral Region. Thank you for joining me today. On to something else now. The issue of illegal sale of illicit fuel in Cameroon is becoming a major problem, not only in the northwest and southwest region, which are close to neighboring Nigeria from where the products are being imported, but across the country. Today we are going to show you how that business is prospering in Njombe. It is in the Mongo division, and we'll also tell you about the risk involved in the business.
The illicit trade in fuel is a growing challenge in Cameroon. Over the past decade, streets, quarters, and private homes in major towns and cities are increasingly being invaded by those involved in this illegal business. Everyone saw what happened in the town of Chang due to the sale of adulterated fuel. A smoker could be passing by with a cigarette and it results to an explosion. The situation is deplorable because in 2021, we still get to find all these illegal spots in towns where people sell this illicit fuel. Most people involved in this trade preserve fuel in disposable bottles. It is dangerous because a child could stumble on this and drink up unknowingly. The sale of adulterated fuel is not good for the society. Despite the adverse consequences on vehicles and motorbikes, the business is still flourishing. We all know fuel sold in the quarters is not good, but people get to buy this fuel because it is cheaper, whereas fuel sold at filling stations is refined with the best quality. The sale of adulterated fuel promotes the destruction of vehicles in the long run, reason why we the mechanics prefer to always get fuel from filling stations. There is growing doubt that the illicit fuel trade is a pressing issue that requires an urgent response. There is need for greater awareness by key actors involved in this industry around the extent of the problem in Cameroon.
The use of locally fabricated hand sanitizers has been banned by the principal of Government Technical High School, Baboni, in the Upper Kam Division West region of the Republic of Cameroon. And due to this reason, as a result of this reason, over 30 students were sent out of school for not being in possession of the right quality or the recommended quality of hand sanitizers. Details with Immaculate Fogwe.
These are students of Government Technical High School Baboni in the Opankam Division West region. They were chased out of their classroom by their principal for not using hand sanitizers bought from the pharmacy. Her decision has been condemned by some students and parents in Baboni. We have been sent out of the gate because our hand sanitizers were not bought from the pharmacy. Many of us can't afford hand sanitizers from pharmacies, so we decided to rely on homemade hand sanitizers. I was forced to go to the pharmacy and buy the gel for my daughter because the one I bought for her was rejected. Why is she the only one insisting that hand sanitizer be gotten from the pharmacy, or has it now become a business? Many of these students, rather than going home, will be gallivanting around. All attempts made to get the reaction of the principal on why she took the decision were all in vain. She rather used aggressive words on the reporter.
Je suis à la source pour demander, madame. Je suis comme ça à la source pour demander ce qui ne va pas. Vous avez commencé le puits et vous prenez d'abord la vie avant de faire. Quand le reportage est de babonner, c'est ça que je dis.
School heads in the Opankam Division are now stepping up the fight against COVID-19. At the entrance of the campus, a thermal scan is carried out with access given only to students wearing their face mask. It should be noted that 5 students of Lycée Classique of Bafang were recently tested positive with COVID-19.
Immaculate Fogwe reporting there, and the Cameroon Scientific Committee has issued a statement concerning the AstraZeneca anti-COVID-19 vaccine that was to be imported by the Republic of Cameroon, but was halted because of the issues concerning that vaccine. Reported health complications developed by some persons who were administered the vaccine. According to the WHO, some reports indicated that some persons or some patients or persons who were administered AstraZeneca vaccine developed blood clot, and now the scientific committee is demanding for a little more time to examine that vaccine and see if it is safe for Cameroonians. We talked to a medical expert, Dr. Ntifo Peter Louis, Secretary General or Deputy Secretary General of the Cameroon Medical Council, and this is what he said.
On March 9th, 2021, the Minister of Public Health signed a communique making public the fact that the Cameroon government had actually subscribed to the COVAX facility. The COVAX facility is a global initiative from renowned institutions like the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, the Global Alliance for Vaccinations and Immunization, and the World Health Organization. The objective of this project is to be able to accelerate the development, production, and equitable access of testing materials for COVID treatment and provision of vaccines to all countries. Immediately after this was made known, there was an unfortunate event in the European, among some European countries, in which it was found out that some recipients of the AstraZeneca vaccine presented with some supposedly adverse effects from this vaccine, and the vaccine that Cameroon was supposed to receive was from AstraZeneca. AstraZeneca is actually a pharmaceutical company that produces drugs and vaccines also, and you know, there are different types of vaccines. There are 4 different types of vaccines against COVID, and the one for AstraZeneca was the one that was incriminated with some of these side effects. Just for people to know, it was found out that some persons who had received these vaccines from AstraZeneca presented with clots, you know, in their lower limbs, which is called deep venous thrombosis. They presented with clots in their chest, in their lungs, which is called pulmonary embolism. Some of them presented with clots in their brains also, and some of them also presented with low levels of platelet count. You know, platelets are actually the cells that participate in clot formation, and which is called thrombocytopenia. For those, for the public, it is important to note that these 4 conditions, deep venous thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, formation of clots in your heads, and low levels of platelet count, is a very life-threatening condition. Very life-threatening condition. And so, when situations like this occur, the bodies, scientific bodies that need to be very careful about the use of this medication. The first point is to be able to see if at all the occurrence of these presentations is linked to the vaccine. So the Minister of Public Health actually called on the National Scientific Council for Public Health Emergencies to
Deputy Secretary General of the Medical Council speaking there. Now in news out of the country, the President of Tanzania is no more. Coming up next, talking point. Our guest is joining us from the United States of America, Dr. Chubufo Muchi Dita, Cardiology Fellow, Public Health Specialist, West Virginia School of Medicine. Thank you for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Babila, and my humble regards to all the Equinoxe televiewers. As always, I send salutations to my community back in Camer.
What is wrong with the AstraZeneca vaccine?
Well, Mr. Babila, before we start this conversation, I would like to make it very clear. We are not here to ask whether vaccines are good or not, but we are here to ask what are some of the issues facing the AstraZeneca vaccine. I think the vaccine went through a rigorous evaluation, development, and testing. And I think based on this result, it was assessed and deemed to be beneficial to the population. And that is exactly why it was recommended and being administered. But as it goes with every medication and every product, there is what we call the post-marketing surveillance. So with AstraZeneca, it's been noted that people who received the vaccine somewhat had complications related to blood clots. I think that's got so much animosity around the vaccines, with some countries suspending vaccinations. But the main problem is, side effects or these blood clots that no one had reported before, which are now being discussed.
Established that some of the complications that erupted in some persons who were administered the AstraZeneca vaccine actually was provoked by the vaccine?
This is a very important question, but it's also a very difficult question for us to respond to. But let me also let the audience know that at this time, the Scientific Committee of the European Market has reviewed all the available data, and they've cleared this vaccine, that it can be used, just like the WHO also mentioned probably a day or two ago, that this vaccine has more benefit than any potential consequences. So to establish whether a vaccine is really responsible for this clot is difficult. We need to look at the data. But there are a few things we need to look at. The first thing is whether the number of clots being reported among people who took this vaccine is more than what it should be expected in the general community. Let's not forget, every day people die of blood clots. So having a blood clot is not the problem, but if so many people, more than expected, have blood clots after taking this vaccine, then we have to say there might be a link. The other thing you also have to establish before you might want to say it is due to the vaccine, you want to know if there are no other alternative explanations. Every day there are so many things which could cause blood clots. For instance, a lady who is taking birth control medications is at higher risk of having a blood clot. Could it be the reason why the person had a blood clot and not necessarily the vaccine? So there are so many things we need to go into in order to tell whether these things are related. But another thing I want to highlight is because this vaccine is new, everybody is aware of it. After taking the vaccine, these people go through intense surveillance. So things which may be happening in the community and nobody ever picks them up, they are being picked up at this time because these people are being actively monitored. So at this time, from the last reading I made, the evidence doesn't seem to support that these clots are expressly caused by the vaccine. But I also know the scientific community will continue to monitor closely to make sure that the preliminary statements and findings remain consistent. And at this time, the benefits of taking the vaccine are more than the consequences of letting people go unvaccinated.
As the United States, where you are, how far has the United States gone with the vaccination? I know that the Pfizer vaccine is what is really predominantly administered there in the United States.
That is true, and I've taken my vaccines. I've taken both doses, and I took the second on the 5th of January. I'm doing just fine. I took the Pfizer. I'm doing just fine. Fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have much of AstraZeneca in the United States. But I can tell you the US is moving at full speed, making sure they vaccinate as many people as possible. Let's not let the distractors or the small hitches, maybe with the ongoing vaccines, make us believe vaccines are not a game changer. Vaccines have always been a game changer, and they play a very, very major role when it comes to prevention, alongside other measures. So the US is going full speed. People are getting vaccinated. Side effects are minimal, and we've been recording significant benefits because most of our people are vaccinated.
Seems to be improving to a greater extent in almost all the states there.
Yes, the numbers are actually reducing, and I would say in every state, people in their millions have been vaccinated. But what I also want to make known, probably in places especially like Cameroon, where vaccines are not yet there, and we already have these recent developments which are even going to slow the arrival of vaccines, that people have to focus on measures which have been proven to work. Putting on a mask, avoiding large gatherings, staying socially distant, making sure you respect basic measures of hygiene. And, in Cameroon, it's rather unfortunate because I still get to see people organize huge parties. I get to see so many people not even do the basics of putting on masks. And I will use this platform to appeal to every Cameroonian that COVID is real. I took care of so many patients and so many died. And I don't want Cameroon to be in that same spot. So while we are waiting on vaccines, which are the ultimate game changer, we should respect the basic measures of always putting on your mask.
I was going to ask you what you think about the way in which your home country is going about the vaccination with regards to what is happening there in the United States. It has not yet started here, but the country was already planning to import AstraZeneca when some of these controversial reports started coming about some side effects, negative impact on the people who take the AstraZeneca vaccine, and the importation was somehow suspended. And now the scientific committee is asking for more time to examine the vaccine. What do you think about how we are progressing here in Cameroon with this vaccination?
Well, I think, we've always had benefits from vaccines, and nobody should let a single vaccine come and destroy all the gains over the years, whether we are talking about other vaccines, polio, meningitis, or other infections. So it is very, very correct that we should take all the necessary measures to make sure whatever comes into Cameroon as a vaccine, we are confident now. But what we should even do and what we should focus on more is when this vaccine gets into Cameroon, are we adequately equipped to handle it? And when we administer this vaccine, would we be able to monitor those who receive it and pick up not just the reported side effects, but side effects that might be specific to our community? Let's not forget, this vaccine development did not include Cameroonians. And when the vaccine comes to Cameroon, there might be things specific to the Cameroonian population that we need to take care of. So we need to have a robust system, first to handle the vaccines which are coming, and two, make sure when people are vaccinated, we have what is an effective surveillance system for side effects and anticipated adverse outcomes so that they can be appropriately investigated and managed.
Dr. Chobufo Muchi Dita, Cardiology Fellow, Public Health Specialist, West Virginia School of Medicine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Babila, and I pray every Cameroonian continues to do what they can do best in their powers to prevent the continuous spread of this COVID. COVID is real. Please protect yourself. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Doctor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Coming up next, Equinoxe.